Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 532 for the week of January 31st, 2022. My name is Ryan Higgins. Who's here this week?
Roxiger.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
Kevin doubling up on Zoom. Mute yourself, man. You're echoey. What's happening? Sorry we were off last week. Bit of stuff going on. Unable to be on. But we're here now. Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're here. We got not a ton to talk about this week, but a couple big topics. We are going to have finally another spoiler-filled late review, the classic Comic Conspiracy late review of the 2021 box office smash, The Eternals, finally on Disney Plus. So myself, Brock, and Charlie all got the chance to see it. So we got
a chance to stream it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes at the very end of the podcast. We don't have a ton of news topics to cover, but a couple of big ones, definitely important ones. There's only one thing we have to start. We have to start with Mouse. Real quick, this specifically has been a big story for us at the store as well. Art Spiegelman, comic creator, he's not writing Batman, but although an Art Spiegelman Batman would be pretty interesting. In the 70s and 80s, he serialized a comic. What was it? Raw, right? Raw magazine is where it was. Called Mouse, M-A-U-S. It's about the Holocaust and his family's involvement. As
it was his father's experiences through the Holocaust.
Right. As Jews living in Germany during the Holocaust. And this book has, won the Pulitzer Prize. It has been widely taught in colleges, in schools, library curriculum, for decades at this point, collected into 2 volumes, although more recently, now just in a complete volume. And Mouse is clearly pretty intense work. It takes the Nazis are cats and the Jewish people are mice, and it's very it's history of his father and his and the whole kind of just retells their family's experience during these events and what comes after it. And again, widely regarded as maybe one of, if not the most important comics ever created. This is one of these books that not a lot of podcast coverage. Sorry, there's not, they didn't make the most cinematic universe with all sorts of daily content drops for us to talk about. But obviously a book everyone should read. Traditionally sells better in towards college students and in high school, and obviously more mature readers. Anyway, an 8th grade English language arts class removed Mouse from their curriculum. And there's this was in Tennessee, and you can read the entire back and forth the school board had about removing it. It's about 20 minutes long, and then you can read through their whole dialogue about it, why they removed the book. And it isn't like although who knows deeper unspoken reasons, but at least their general reasons for banning the book from the school, or removing the book, from the curriculum. Technically, they didn't ban it. Not banned from like the public library stuff, just within the class. Is that there's the most mild swearing of all, and a one case of nudity, which is not sexual in any way, shape, or form. It's during a pretty tragic scene in the book. And that, why are they teaching their kids about this stuff? Well, I think anyone with half a brain knows exactly why you teach kids about the Holocaust, because it's a horrible, horrible event. And, if you were to show them real life pictures and videos, it's absolutely nightmare inducing and terrible. And Mouse is a much more, although very serious, it's a more palatable to experience for kids to, learn the horrors of World War II. So, this wasn't like a fight. I mean, this was banned 10-0. So, like, the school board unanimously decided to remove the book. And this was a couple of weeks ago. But of course, it started to get some pretty big press this past week on Wednesday, and really blew up into a big thing. If you want to see Art Spiegelman, he's on CNN. He has a wonderful, like a 15-minute interview on CNN. He's showed up in other places, but I think that CNN interview was his first one. And he had words. Let's just say he had quite a few words. Everyone, the first person I saw talk about it was Neil Gaiman. He retweeted one of the reports on it. By midday Wednesday, it was everywhere. It's one of the biggest news stories through the weekend, at least in the world of arts and entertainment. And every comic book defense fund and all your traditional comic journalists all chimed in. But this got traction on every major news network, every major place covered it. Why this is a little bit more important topic for us, is as I did prior, I think we talked about this in the podcast. I can't remember. But last year, a school in Texas banned a bunch of books and a bunch of comic books, including that was Y the Last Man and V for Vendetta. And I tweeted out like, hey, what? No. If you go to school here, let me know. I'll send you a copy for free. And I actually got a couple of replies. I sent out like 2 or 3 copies. Like, it wasn't a lot, but we did get a couple of replies from people over there, and that was great. So I thought, this sucks. Mouse is readily available. We got a couple copies here at the shop, and I can always order some more. I'll send out copies to people. Yeah, anyone in this county, Tennessee, that goes to this school, you want a copy, let me know. It got quite a bit of traction. Quite a bit of traction. Yeah, quite a bit.
What was not on your bingo card for this year, apparently?
Yeah. Jake Tapper at CNN retweeted me within the first few minutes. It must just in the trending topic, so that got a lot of attention. So we're getting in copies. Should be either very beginning of this or very end of this week or very early next week. I think we got about 60 copies we're sending out so far. And every day I'm getting a couple more people from there asking about it. So, it's super cool that the whole thing is not cool, obviously, but the response has been great.
Cannot wait locally to ship all those out.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how many more we get by the time our orders come in. And we've heard from people across the country that want to, people wanted to buy additional copies, and I was like, it's not really necessary. We're covering the ones we're sending out. But we have pre-sold and sold additional copies. Mayor of Sunnyvale came into the store. It was a Sunday. It was a Sunday. Yeah, Marshall was there. He messaged me, and he's like, oh, he wants a copy. I'm like, absolutely. So,
considering we're sold out, and I shipped like 1 and 2 this week.
Yeah, I immediately sold a couple copies of the hardcover we had in stock. The last, we only had like, I think, 1 set of the soft covers because it's a 2-parter. Yeah, those sold immediately. And I jumped on and did a big reorder. We actually did get an email from Penguin Random House who was like, we are seeing unprecedented activity from every vendor for this book. Well, we have copies.
Amazon
Don't worry,
was temporarily out of stock. So,
well, right. So as these things do, this backfired dramatically, not just getting copies to and I should say there's also a store in Tennessee. I should look up the name of the store. I don't have it in front of me, but there's a store in Tennessee that is basically they're doing a GoFundMe not only for the people locally, but to also pick up copies of this and other books to basically send out nationally to other areas if their schools do something similar. We're seeing a number of.
There's been recently a huge influx, or just a huge push for banning books and content, and
from a lot of
like
conservative school boards and library boards. Vote in your local elections, people. That's all I'm going to say.
I think you're talking about Nirvana Comics. Isn't that the store in Tennessee?
Yeah. Yep. That sounds right. So they got to be up to like $100,000 now. I think they were at like 75 or something when I checked last. They've got to have blown past that by now. So they got just an absolute ton of money. I see a couple of people that were like, don't go out and buy copies of Mouse and give it to your local library. That's not what they need. They need cash. They need cold, hard cash to keep the library going. They know what to spend the money on. They don't need 50 copies of a book. That's not how libraries usually work. That's not how this works. Vote in your local elections. Donate to public libraries. All that type of stuff. You don't have to buy a copy for me. Don't worry about it. We're fine. If you want a copy for yourself, sure. We'll have them on our website next week. But with Amazon, I think the 4 versions of Mouse 1, Mouse 2.
Yep.
The complete Mouse, which is the standard edition now that you get, and the box set. I think all 4 were in the top 10 Amazon books. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4 in graphic novels, like historical fiction. I think they were like 3 of the top 8 or 3 of the top 6 or something like that. It is crazy. Sold out on Amazon. Over the weekend, it was like, again, they got to get restock. So 1 to 3 week restock from Amazon. These type of things just always blow up in the face of the people when they're trying to ban or remove books from libraries and schools. And this blew up in a tremendous fashion on these people.
Even the biggest thing about it this week was like the 27th, Thursday, was Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Right. And they did it on Wednesday, the day prior.
They did it the day prior. Like, how fucking stupid do you have to be? Like, even PR people are like that. They're like, just why don't you just pour gasoline on yourself and light yourself on fire? Like,
Art Spiegelman, in his interview, he was even like, I don't think these people are Nazis, but why would they do this? A lot of really stupid stuff has been done in the name of trying to protect children. And a lot of people hide really bigoted actions through the guise of, we have to protect the children. Children are fine. If you were listening to this podcast right now, think back to when you were in 8th grade. Think back to being 8, 10, 12 years old, all those age range. Look, I'm not going to give Mouse to a 4-year-old, and they're not going to know what to do with it, right? But think back to being a tween or, right in that age range. I don't care what decade you lived in. I don't care if you're that age now. I don't care if you grew up in the 50s. I don't care how old you are. Swearing, nudity, sex, violence has always been a part, especially in America, of culture and fiction. It just always has been. Whether you're looking through a porno mag that you hid in the woods, or whether you're just surfing the internet, there's shit everywhere. These kids have heard things every single day, 1,000 times worse on TikTok and on Fortnite. They have massacred millions of people in video games. They have listened to music with swears and sexual content. They have watched TV shows and movies. They're fine. They're almost all fine.
Well,
you know what's not fine, though? Growing up in an area and not rejecting the racism and anti-Semitism and bigotism of people that your parents and your teachers, right? That is not fine. TV and movies are not going to corrupt children. Music's not going to corrupt children. asshole parents, asshole teachers, those are who corrupt people. That's who corrupts children. Asshole politicians, it's not the entertainment. It's not video games. It's not music. It's not comic books.
So we're all pretty much in our 40s. And when we were entering high school, there was a movie that came out called Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end of our high school days, they were actually there. I remember distinctly all of the outrage at showing Schindler's List to high school students to help teach them about the Holocaust.
You have to.
Like, I'm not sitting here. Like, I've seen Schindler's List numerous times. I don't sit here and go, oh my God, I saw naked people. I saw they were swearing. I saw like people killed. I'm like, I saw the horrors that happened to the Jewish people during World War II. I got to somehow experience this, at least in a way that I know the people on the screen weren't really affected because it's fake.
Yeah.
But it's representing of what happened at the time. Like, and so when I saw that they banned this, I was like, what, am I going back in fucking time again? Like,
again, it's never actually about protecting children. Yeah. Again, if you're like, I'm going to show,
I work in education. If they wanted to protect children, we would have gun control laws. So any of these people that want to ban these books, I bet you money that they're gun-toting, gun-loving people. And I'm like, those people just need to step aside because you're the problem.
Endless money for schools and free food for every student, free healthy food for every student.
Dependent if we give them free food.
That's how you help children.
We can't have kids have food.
Yeah.
That makes them dependent, reliant.
Yeah. It's I'm glad I got to do my part. I'm glad we're going to get to do our part with the store. It's this, we're in the bluest area of the bluest state. There's just, our votes are meaningless. This is something that affected, my industry. So, this is the literal minimum I could do. And I'm just happy to be some small part of this. And if we can change one kid's mind, awesome. That's great.
I mean, either that or we're just going to get some kid hooked on rat erotica, and him and John Oliver can.
John Oliver's rat erotica.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just. I look at the pictures that they show of it shows rat or mouse penis, and I'm like, it's literally a droop line. It's like a U line.
I mean,
it's a symbolic thing. It's not an actual thing. It's not like these are if that's what you're focusing on.
And look, people have been listening to this podcast for 12, God, how many years we've been doing this nonsense?
10 going on 11.
10 years of shit.
It'll be 11.
We've probably mentioned mouse 3 times ever.
I own it. I just haven't read it.
Yeah, I own it too. I'm not going to say it's my favorite comic of all time. Look. This is we talk about fucking Batman punching Kite Man on this podcast. Like generally we don't cover the heavier stuff. I was half expecting them to also ban "They Call Us Enemy" by George Sakai. I mean, it's the same idea, right?
Like the atrocities that we put on the Japanese here in America isn't as severe as what the Germans did to the Jews during the Holocaust. But I mean, it's a stain on America's history, and we have to accept it and move on from it and learn from it and know it happened.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think, sure. If you're like, I'm going to show Schindler's List to a bunch of 6-year-olds, probably not a great idea. No. They're just not going to really get it. But Mouse is the perfect type of book for a younger audience. Now, again, I think there is a point that is maybe too young to give. But when you're what's 8th grade? At 10?
8th grade 13, is 12,
13.
Yeah.
Is that 13? Fuck, I don't know how old any kid is. Oh, at 13.
You take 5 for kindergarten because they're 5 when they enter kindergarten. And you add the grade level. So if it's 8th grade, you add 8 to 5. It's 13.
Good Lord. Okay. At 13, they have definitely seen endlessly worse stuff.
I'll bet you money the entire class that this would have been given it to had watched Guardians of the Galaxy Part or Volume 2. I'll bet you money the entire class had seen Guardians Volume 2.
Sure. Is there nudity in Guardians 2?
No, they literally have that diorama of him sowing wild oats, and then Drax says penis.
Oh yeah.
In the first one, it's like, oh, if you had a black light, it'd be a Jackson Pollock painting in here. It's like,
I mean, you know, and I think, you know, if you showed actual footage and video of the Holocaust, which I think you should, but if you show that stuff to young kids, I could see that being very disturbing. It's graphic and horrible, right? This is a way to show them what's going on without the you know, they understand, but without the actual horrors of you know, the graphic nature of the death and violence that occurred during it. So look, I don't expect this type of stuff to ever end. You know, I'm glad to be a small part in trying to help this particular situation, but boy, America is, you know, so sorry to get even, you know, slightly more political than we have been in the last year or two, but or last year especially, but yeah, this type of stuff's not gonna go well, and doesn't just. Man, get involved if you can. If you're in an area like this, you got to do something, because there's a lot of bad fucking people that want to protect your kids, quote unquote. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm always suspect of people that say, "I want to protect the children."
Yeah, no.
It puts the lotion on its skin.
Yeah, there's no. We won't go. Kevin, Charlie, you guys, if you jump in, Kevin. You must have been. You were like Mouse, like you were there for it, right? Like I guarantee.
Well, I wasn't reading Raw.
No, but I mean, but you were there when it was like.
Yeah, I remember having to stock it on the shelf at a comic store.
Right,
I believe
right.
if my timeline's right.
It was 90s.
You know, it's one of those things where if you said if you heard of a case where a parent said, "I'm not comfortable with my 13-year-old reading this," I don't think you would react and go, "Oh, what an idiot parent. What an asshole. How dare they?" I think you could understand that, depending on...
I mean, I would roll my eyes.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be... Sure. No. It wouldn't be like national news and you riding to the rescue.
Well, I mean...
No. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody said that.
No, I wouldn't be shocked either, because some parents realize the immaturity level of their kids. Right, like if you're going, like if you were like, if I'm doing it with my kids and they're like, no, he can't read that, he's too immature, or she can't look at that, she's too immature, she's not there yet to comprehend it. That's a different story. But if it's coming from it makes me feel uncomfortable that my child is going to learn about something atrocious at a designated time when we're starting to talk about world history and World War II and all of these atrocities, like your kid's going to grow up like. At some point, the better parent would be there for the kid.
Well, I don't want to get into labels of the better parent, the worst parent. My whole point was, if you heard an anecdote of that happening, I don't think anybody would clutch their pearls too hard and be outraged by it. I think in this case, it's the appearance of a Soviet-style erasure of content, of book banning, a 10-0 vote. And that, I think it's, boy, you really, it's a tough argument when you're not there and you don't know what all the arguments were. I'm not advocating on the side of banning Mouse, obviously, but I'm saying that if
you can read the conversation, the panel. And it is the talk is there's nudity and swearing and violence, and should we be teaching kids this? You're not teaching them nudity and swearing and violence. You're teaching them about the fucking Holocaust. Right? That is the mistake these people are making. Now, the question raised by our Spigum and other people is, are these people anti-Semitic? Are they secret Nazis and they're doing this and this is their reason? Or are they simply just like, I just don't want my kid to read books that are swearing, so no kid can.
And so my point is, I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
And so it's hard to just go, oh, what a bunch of rubes, rednecks, idiots, ignorant. I know there's, in certain Twitter debates, there's not room for a nuanced entry into the debate. So I'm just going to step back from there and say, look, I would have no problem with a kid of mine at 13 years old reading Maus. It's a theoretical kid because that person doesn't exist. But I'm saying, as a non-parent, Brock, obviously your kids are way younger than that. Charlie probably is the closest on the spectrum to this.
Well, I want to get Charlie's take because he's got kids this age. Yeah. But I read when I was so I started reading comics when I was 12. No, I started reading comics when I was 11. No, 12. I was 12. By the time I was 14, when I was at the shop, when I was at the comic store that I helped out at, I was reading Heavy Metal, Hellboy, Sin City, Alien, Terminator, Predator. I was reading everything. I was reading all those independent comics from like 92, 93, and I was reading back.
You were reading Sandman too.
I was reading Sandman. Right, exactly. So, like, look, that's way worse than Maus.
Yes. The difference is, Ryan, you're a customer in a store, and this is several levels of bureaucratic oversight.
Sure. But I mean, I say this all the time, especially to customers come in. I said, they're your kids, but I didn't turn out to be a serial killer. I didn't turn out to be a psychopath. Like, just because a kid reads stuff doesn't mean they're going to be that way. But Charlie, like, your oldest kid's what? 16 now, 17. How old's your kid now? Your kid's
17.
Old. Yeah. Like, but for the younger kids or when they were growing up, like what was the limit?
Oh, I mean, the reality is, in general, I would always self-correct as the kids would get into different content based on how it was affecting them. Meaning, there was a point in time when my oldest at the time was still pretty young, and he came across all these horror video game videos on YouTube, and it started affecting his sleep. So I'm like, yeah, enough of those. But
Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah, at the time, yes.
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
And as he got older, I let him re-engage with that stuff, and he's fine. But it's one of those things where it just kind of comes down to how the kid's reacting. But there's two parts of this to me that really stand out to me. One, you're absolutely right about, as a kid, you see and take in all sorts of content that isn't necessarily any better than Maus or worse than Maus. You can argue that either way. But the reality is, the amount of that content that I've revisited as an adult, that I take something completely different from now, makes me not worry about my kids in the least about a lot of stuff, because I realize they're going to just take what they're going to take as a kid, and as they get older, they'll pick up on other things. Like, it's not like when you think back to a lot of the books and movies and that stuff that we could go through. Like, the immediate thing isn't like, oh, there was nudity in that movie. That's not where my mind goes when you think of Schindler's List. That's
right.
Like,
right.
And I don't know in terms of the school board or anything. I think it's very easy to come through and see this has XYZ in it that if you put against a parental scale, blah, 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 means it would fall here, and not wanting to deal with the outrage of somebody coming and saying this should be rated R technically, or this technically, or that technically. And I don't know how informed the people who made this decision are, but I will say that I am 100% in agreement that just because something is uncomfortable to look at doesn't mean that it's not worth teaching. There's tons of stuff within history where, if you show things exactly as they were to teach them properly, your natural reaction should be to want to look away or something, because humans can be fucking grotesque at times. And it doesn't do anybody any good trying to hide all that away.
Well, the school board's going to have a fun time when these kids get to high school and they teach them night.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a book that I wasn't aware of, but it's getting a lot of people are talking about it in the same conversation, and that is apparently being taken out of schools and removed and banned in a lot of situations. There's another graphic novel called Genderqueer.
I haven't seen that one, but yeah, I think I've seen it in lists.
Yeah, that's another one that's getting removed a lot. I mean, these are just
the best one I've seen that gets removed is like Equal Rights.
Oh, I mean, in some of these areas, it's just like it's no pun intended. It's very black and white. It is we are removing a bunch of stuff by black creators and black authors,
gay creators,
people of color, and LGBT creators. Like just flat out. I mean, it's just incredibly obvious. This seems, while slightly more nuanced, still not good. So,
I guess
we will.
The only thing about this that it's very easy to get caught up on the what's being taken away or that kind of thing. I am curious what their alternate to teach about this stuff is, or if there was an alternate, meaning, as I said, it's very easy to kind of give into a certain amount of, I don't want my kids seeing nudity in this, or I don't want, but
you
remove that one part of the book and it doesn't take away the effect of the book. Like,
right.
I kind of feel like this is one of those few cases where I'm like, maybe there should be a minorly censored school version if it's going to be that big a problem, because it doesn't.
But they're saying these kids shouldn't see the word like goddamn. Like, come on.
Shit, I don't want my kid knowing how to swear. God damn it.
Yeah, it's just.
I guess the closest I can sort of say, not in terms of the school thing, but it's the Batman Damned controversy. Mm-hmm. Like, you change that one panel and it doesn't change the book.
Right. They did change the panel for the trade paperback.
Yeah, I know. But that's basically what I'm saying. The same kind of thing there, where I feel like, depending on what the stake in the ground is, I would immediately ask the question of, okay, what if we change that one panel just to not show that one thing you're objecting to?
Yeah.
Does that restore it back to the school? Because if not, that's a whole nother argument.
Well, I think the biggest problem is that we're censoring content that's horrible based on somebody's perception of what that content entails, and that content in context of what it is what it actually was. So you're censoring the past to make it sugarcoat it. And the thing is like it's when you try and sugarcoat it, it's the same thing as trying to whitewash something or do all this stuff. Start going, we can pick and choose and pick and choose and pick and choose. It's just a way to censor content that's truthful.
There's a very different thing between showing a rated R movie to a 13-year-old and having parents outraged, and showing a PG movie to kids and having parents outraged. What I'm basically saying is if you're not changing the context or the horror of the book by changing that one panel. I understand the whole censorship argument and that kind of thing, but at the same time, I don't have a problem with parents being like, I don't want you showing nudity in the school. Like, I understand the context to it, but it's very easy to put a flag in the ground and saying, this is what we're not comfortable with.
We're not teaching comfortable people that degrading people is a bad thing.
That has nothing to do with altering that one. I mean, like, there's
I agree with Charlie. Look, if the school says nudity is a line in the sand, I mean, again, I understand, but they can edit the book. Like literally one black bloop, and this conversation's over, right? Like that. I don't care about that, right? It is the full removal of the and I think they even talk about that as being like a possibility, but then they just chose to remove it. So yeah, if it was, we're going to give you this book, but your parent has to sign a permission slip.
That's normally how schools school districts operate like that.
And I don't have a problem with that.
There's questionable content going to be taught in the sense of it's not questionable. It's sensitive content. Do you want your child?
I think I had to have a parent permission slip when we had like a sex ed class.
Yeah, you have
middle school.
When we went to school, you have to have a parent permission to do sex ed. You have to get parent permission to do certain like activities or
I got no problem with that.
I mean, there was even when we were in school, there was this thing you had to sign off on being able to watch Cinder's List.
Sure, I'm frustrated that I'm sure a number of parents would say, "Oh, I don't want kids reading about that Jew comic." Like I'm sure that would happen, and that makes me mad in another way. But that's not the school's fault at that point. That's them just doing their due diligence, which I have no problem with.
I like Stephen King's response: read whatever they're trying to keep out of your eyes and your brain, because that's exactly what you need to know.
Yeah. I'm sure there's going to be, this will not be the only time we end up talking about this, and next podcast we hopefully get the book back in stock. I'm sure we're going to sell it immediately, and that's great that more people are going to read it because of this. Just adults. It's great that adults are going to read this book. Watchmen was one of those books where whenever we'd get copies in, I'd always have a regular that's been with the shop for 30 years. It's like, I've never read Watchmen, and I'm like, the hell you've been here for 30 years and you never read Watchmen. What the hell's wrong with you? Read Watchmen. Obviously a very different type of book, but I feel like Mouse is one of those, like, I don't know that a lot of comic book people read it. I think a lot of non-comic book people read it and outside audience stuff. But if you're like, the Wednesday subscriber, I'm sure that a good number have not read it. So it's great that it's opening. And look, like I said, I'm like a master of this thing. I read the book once 20 years ago, right? Like it was like, whoa, this is, I feel like a book I should read, and I did, and it was a tough read, and I'm not gonna say it's it's a walk in the park. It isn't, but it's I'm glad I read it.
I know that,
and I'm gonna reread it now because I'm like, I definitely time to pull out my copy again.
I know that we're gonna probably have more of this going forward with certain books, because I know some things are starting to like slip into public domain, which means that like a lot of people are taking things and making comic books out of them. Like Great Gatsby was just redone as a comic book. And so you're going to have some of these things slide into public domain, and somebody's going to take the opportunity and make a comic of it. So, they've done it before. We have editions of things in graphic novel format as well. But yeah, I think it's funny that this isn't the last time we're going to see this anytime soon. So
no, not at all. No, of course it's going to continuously happen. So we got a bunch of nonsense to talk about now. Let's take it down 3 or 4 levels.
Let's go punch Kite Man.
Let's talk about a bunch of dumb garbage. We can actually talk about if people got more to say about what's it called Peacemaker. We can also talk about Peacemaker.
I mean, he apprehended Kite Man.
I know, it's great. So no. Well, if we talk about Peacemaker, we'll talk about it later. I just want to say, all I want is all those characters to appear in the final episode. I want them all to show up in the final episode.
What, Matter Eater Lad?
That's the new Suicide Squad, right? Kite Man, Matter Eater Lad, Batmite, Doll Man. That could be the new Suicide Squad. Anyway, got some TV movie news to talk about here, and then we're gonna do our quick Eternals recap. Kevin may bow out. We'll see if he makes it to that point. I don't know if he wants to go through that again. I expected this is it for the Flash. I thought Grant Gustin was done. I did not imagine a world in which we're going to get a season 9 of the Flash. But word is he's signing on for at least one more year, and we're going to get 9 seasons of the Flash. And that has to be. I mean, God, that has to be it.
How many seasons did Arrow go for?
8. It was like 7 in that short season. It was like 7 in like that 10 episodes, 8 season, and it was. It wasn't even a full season. It wasn't even a full 10 episodes because one episode was Crisis. One episode was the
backdoor pilot.
Green Arrow and
the backdoor pilot.
Yeah, the pilot episode that never happened. So, the little 5-episode Invasion
Armageddon.
Yes, Armageddon. Invasion was a couple seasons ago. Was fine. It was better than last season. I'll tell you that. Like, he was a superhero in a costume and did stuff and was in the episodes for the most part. So better than last season for sure. But still, like, man, Superman and Lois and Stargirl are just so good, and the main CW shows just it's time, guys. It's time to just move on. It's time to get other shows on.
I have to admit, I am still enjoying the ridiculousness of Legends when I finally sit down and watch it. Like, I always end up 5 or 6 episodes behind, and that's just one of those shows that does not care at all about anything anymore.
No, I last season. The season prior, I had a lot of issues with. This last season just lost me completely. I talked about this. To me, it is just. Look, I love Doctor Who. It doesn't even try to be a superhero show anymore. At least it tried for a number of seasons and did a great job of being goofy and wacky, but still, it's just not a superhero show in any way, shape, or form now. So I've become very disconnected from Legends, but people seem to still really like it. I have fallen off.
Maybe I just enjoyed the fact that the most recent episode was called Fix Point.
Fix Point in Time.
That's exactly what it was all about.
Yeah. So we'll see if Grant Gustin.
Yeah. No, I agree. The Flash has outlived its heyday by quite a bit.
Yeah. There was some rumor that they're like, oh, he's going to be in the Flash movie too. And I'm like, sure, maybe.
Well, I mean,
according to the internet, every character ever is going to be in Doctor Strange 2 and the Flash. Yeah. So I guess if you say every character, then you're going to get 100% correct. Because
they'll just reuse that scene from Crisis.
They'll just be in the scene in the Flash.
That's all they'll do.
It'll just be that scene.
Yeah. They'll just flash the across the screen.
Well, if you guess every single outcome, then you will be correct. At least a couple of those will be correct. There will be various people showing up in these movies. That would be kind of funny if it was just
hit the bullseye eventually.
Yeah, that would be funny if it is just the scene from Crisis, and he's like, "Oh, the Flash. I like that name," because he doesn't call himself anything in the Justice League movies. Only other kind of news thing I want to talk about here before we move on to, I got a question and then we'll do some other stuff. I'm so of two minds of this because I loved the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix. I love the Joker. However, if a sequel does not need to happen, I feel like a sequel should not happen. But when a movie makes $1 billion, a sequel is all but guaranteed to happen. And I don't like reporting on rumor shit. But there's been talk since like day one of the movie coming out and being a mega hit that they want to do more. And so word is that there are rumors out there that they're going to start filming. They're working on a sequel soon, and it's going to start filming soon. Or start next year. They're working on it now and start filming next year. And I feel like if they did it like immediately, maybe it would have been like a little more understandable. But like if a Joker movie comes out in like 2025, doesn't that feel a little odd? Like, what do you like?
No, he just takes his time.
I just don't. We need a Joker sequel.
Does it hurt anybody by having a Joker sequel?
I just don't.
I don't know what further points there are to be made.
I mean, they just pick up where they left off.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of hit everything.
Yeah.
This gave kind of a start to the character. If we see a sequel, it's going to be what this character, how this character expands, right? Like how does this character, you know? I don't want to say grow.
Do they age him up and they bring in the Robert Pattinson Batman in a couple of years? Do they even acknowledge Batman? Do they just
it's going to be its own there's going to be it's not going to have Batman. It's going to have the Jared Leto Joker coming onto that guy's turf, and it's Joker versus Joker is your sequel.
Oh, you get 3 Jokers. Just get another Joker in there.
Does that make you more interested?
It's already written. Is this part of Crisis? Is this
there's no
Crisis
Batman,
movie?
It's no Batman, no superheroes, just 3 guys dressed up as Jokers.
I don't know. That could be kind of fun.
It'll be titled These Jokers.
Flash at the end of Flashpoint. At the end of the Flashpoint movie, just busts open reality and a bunch of Jokers just all fall out.
I mean, you don't even need to do it that way fully, because I mean, part of the whole thing at the end of the Joker movie was that he had inspired all this chaos and stuff within Gotham. I could totally see him just sort of falling off the grid for a number of years and X amount of copycats popping up, taking on that persona.
Yeah. Well, and, God, by next year, who even knows? We'll be, 5 DC movies in that are coming out this year, and if they're all flops or they all do amazing, and stuff like Joker may go to the side if they want something that's maybe a little less grim, a little less serious. I guess depending on how Batman does. I assume Batman will do well, but
tickets go on sale soon.
Yeah, I got to make a decision soon. I'll probably I'll probably try to go see it at some point, but maybe I'll do it a quiet Monday show.
Batman, Aquaman, Shazam. Are you counting like Batgirl that's going to HBO Max? I'm just trying to think of the 5.
Yeah, I think it's 5, right?
It's Batman, Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, Black Adam.
Oh, that's right, Black Adam.
Yeah,
and then
Black Adam. Yeah.
And then the
Super Pets, if you want to say 6.
Well, no, in the Flash movie.
Okay, there we go. So that's not even counting the HBO Max like Batgirl and stuff that they're currently working. Some more. It's going to be tons.
Jesus Christ! Time for this shit. Too many movies. Yeah, man, I fucking love Joker, but boy, I don't know what you do with a sequel. Like I feel like that's such a good one and done. You just leave it. You just let it do its own thing, and there's just not really a reason to expand out from that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. All right, question here. Then we'll get to maybe some Peacemaker, but definitely some Eternal stock. That's from Kelsey. She says, really more into DC Comics, but Spider-Man No Way Home, but into Spider-Man No Way Home as well as rewatching all the 90s X-Men animated series, has been wanting to branch to more Spider-Man and X-Men comics. What's your favorite recommendations for each to read, to check out? And, definitely looking for omnibuses or collected editions. So, if you're watching No Way Home and you're watching the X-Men animated series, where do you go?
I mean, Claremont X-Men for the animated series. Completely.
Yeah.
It's not even a question.
I think the classic Claremont, which also Marvel has reprinted so many of their omnibuses recently that you should be able to find Uncanny X-Men Volume 1 and 2, which are an omnibus, which is the early Claremont John Byrne stuff. As well as, I don't know if the Claremont Jim Lee Volume 1
I think it's slated to be. I think they have it on, it's coming down the pipeline, but that's...
I mean, they either already had a reprint or a reprint is all the old omnibuses for X-Men basically have gotten reprints or scheduled reprints.
Yeah. So
wait, the question was Spider-Man and X-Men?
Yeah.
I'd also throw in the Joss Whedon Astonishing run.
And that's coming back in an omnibus too.
It's John Cassaday was the artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, specifically for like the 90s X-Men, so much of that draws from the Claremont stuff and the Jim Lee X-Men stuff.
Yeah,
so
like the
those
XT
two
Agenda
runs
and Inferno.
Well, Inferno's like kind of in the middle. That's Inferno's before Jim Lee, I believe. Yeah.
I think it was right before him.
Savage Land stuff, that's all a Jim Lee run.
Yeah. Executioner song, that was the other one.
I think they do the
a bunch of the milestone stuff. Like the X-Men milestones, those cover a lot of that era.
I think all that stuff's out of print. I don't think they're going back.
Stuff's already out of print.
Yeah, that was like, I hated that.
It was horrible.
These like ugly yellow. Yeah, they just reprinted a bunch of classic X-Men stuff, but I think those are mostly out of print now. But yeah, you should be able to find most of the X-Men stuff. Spider-Man stuff, because there's No Way Home is such its own thing. There really isn't. It doesn't really draw from anything particular in the comics.
I mean, you could,
but there's tons of great Spider-Man stuff.
You could go with like
so
the
in general,
Spider-Man
in terms of just Spider-Man stuff, I would always personally go back to the Stan Lee like omnibus, like the Volume 1, Volume 2, especially. But I mean, all the way up through like Volume 4 for me is all good Spider-Man stuff. And then I really enjoyed when I was younger the Stern Spider-Man stuff. I remember that stuff fondly.
Ultimate Spider-Man just started coming back in omnibus. They reprinted that.
And the Spider-Verse stuff, if you like a lot of the sort of crossover nature and stuff of either the Spider-Verse animated movie or No Way Home, both pulls a lot from the Dan Slott Spider-Verse event that he did.
A lot of that stuff's not available right now, and it's crazy.
Well,
it's got to be coming back.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be in the queue. But there's a bunch of the Dan Slott Spider-Man stuff that's not available right now. There has to be like complete collections coming of that stuff soon.
I'm sure there is some stuff coming out like complete collections, but I also just kind of feel like Spider-Verse Dan Slott has a huge run of Spider-Man. It's not a small undertaking if you want to read all of the Dan Slott Spider-Man. But I'm calling out specifically the Spider-Verse arc that he did is kind of where that works very well as a standalone arc. It doesn't. You don't need to have read everything else he did or the stuff he did after it. In fact, in some cases, I kind of feel like if you just read that stuff, you might enjoy it more than trying to do everything, because I enjoyed the Dan Slott run, but that was the high point. That's the stuff that I could reread over and over and over, that and like Superior. I don't necessarily feel like I need to read the after Spider-Verse stuff over and over and over, or before Superior stuff over and over and over.
Well, some of the, me personally, I liked a lot of the Brand New Day stuff, the stuff that came after One More Day, which is One More Day is kind of the premise behind No Way Home, where it's everything gets reset, right? And people forget.
Yeah, kind of.
Like One More Day was not the best, but I enjoyed some of the stuff that came out of Brand New Day.
We should give the caveat here that Charlie, your recs on those omnis, and there's a lot of great Spider-Man epics.
Yeah.
But always to keep in mind for people who are just diving into this, those books are collections of individual issues. It's not like an overarching story that you're getting in a book. It's like a year's worth of old Spider-Man comics in a hardcover. So just to go into it with that mindset is you're not reading quote unquote a story.
Well, what's crazy to me, with Batman, I have endless individual volumes of Batman I can recommend. That is generally not the case with Marvel. They don't do the standalone miniseries or specials or out of continuity stuff quite the same way. They never have.
Well, the other thing too is they don't keep it in print.
Well, so the reason why I always go back to like the Stan Lee Spider-Man stuff, and I totally understand it's not the way modern stories are told. It's a lot of one-off issues and whatnot, but there's a lot of really significant milestones that to this day get referenced in comics.
Oh yeah.
in those first 4 omnibuses.
Yep. Actually, let me piggyback on that rec, Charlie, and recommend a standalone Spider-Man volume that does piggyback off those, which is the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale Spider-Man Blue.
Yeah.
Which
and actually, if you want to dabble
in
in Marvel in general, not just into Spider-Man, there's that omnibus that collects the Daredevil Yellow, the Spider-Man Blue, the Captain America White.
Yeah, and Hulk, right?
And Hulk Gray. Hulk Gray.
Spider-Man Blue is my favorite of all of those that you just named.
Yeah. But they do have a nice, Ryan can tell me that's not in print either. But they do have a nice omnibus that collects all of those, and those are a great way to dabble into sort of.
I don't think it's in print, but yeah, you could probably find that stuff for Spider-Man 2. Only because I'm sure there is no way it's not in the pipeline. Craven's Last Hunt is got to be. That is a rare standalone Spider-Man volume. That's like a little mini series in the main books, and it's just
Venom stuff people like a lot of.
Yeah, but that's Venom. Like Venom's Venom, right? The Venom stuff. Craven's Lost Hunt is a small story. It's a standalone volume, and it will. There's not too many characters left. There's not too many Spider-Man stories left for them to pull from until they get to Craven's Lost Hunt. Right. They're just that is
so
widely regarded as one of them.
He hunts numerous times after that, but
there was
sure.
There was a nice hardcover that came out a few years ago now. Damn it, time keeps moving. But there was a really nice hardcover that had Craven's Last Hunt and like Soul of the Hunter and all that stuff collected in one hardcover volume. If you can find that.
I wish Marvel would do. I mean, those every now and again we'll get stuff in collections of the Marvel graphic novels from the 80s, like the standalone, like 70 page.
So they did like the
64 page.
Like they had that From the Ashes one that was oversized. They finally reprinted that in like a normal size for X-Men.
Yeah. They've. I wish they would do more stuff like that, or I wish they would do more. When they've tried to do original graphic novels, they tend to just not sell. Marvel does them so infrequently. It's crazy because DC just cranks them out all the time. So, yeah, some good suggestions there. Yeah, it is a little, like I said, it is a little bit tougher because I think there's less standalone volumes. But I think the Whedon suggestion for X-Men's a good one because it is just like 2 books or one small omnibus, and that's the entire run. Grant Morrison's X-Men is a similar way, but that's
you need a little bit more history, and it deviates from like the normal X-Men that know.
Just like when I've recommended, when people are like, "Oh, I want to catch up on X-Men," I'm like, you can't just grab Marauders and read it because you're going to be like, what in the fuck? It just makes no sense. Like, you have to read House and Powers and go from there. Like, it's just they changed it so dramatically. Like, you can't just explain, because anyone, if they're coming in to the comics, they'll know the movies, they'll know the cartoon. Maybe they'll know a little bit from the comics, but they're not going to have any idea what the hell happened. So X-Men stuff, I would avoid current stuff unless you want to deep dive.
Well,
the reason I was steering away from Morrison, going back to the listener's question about the 90s X-Men cartoon, is I was trying to think of X-Men runs where they are a team of superheroes doing superhero-y things.
Right. And that's
not the Morrison run. That's not even really Hawks and Pox.
No, definitely not.
But the Whedon run does have that. The Claremont obviously does have that. Like, you want a team of heroes in costumes fighting villains.
All the Messiah stuff was good, but that's out of print.
Yeah, and that stuff's a little more tricky because you end up with the state of mutants becomes the guiding force in that era of the no more mutants and all that stuff, where I kind of feel like
post House of X or House of M.
Yeah. Like the current X-Men, I mean, I guess you can explain it. So the X-Men did an island thing before. It didn't work out. We're going back to an island thing now, but the island is actually a mutant that they live on that can transport people to places. And the X-Men are becoming their own country again.
Yeah. I I think
But this time
Spider-Man,
better.
I think Spider-Man, you can kind of just jump in. Spider-Man is Spider-Man, and you'll get stories where things go weird, but there's not a lot of setup. I think with X-Men, it's much harder. You're gonna want that backstory of the Claremont era, the early stuff, and Giant Size X-Men, to give you the sort of the setup to the characters and the relationship, because prior to Giant Size, that's the X-Men weren't anything like that. It was totally different. He sort of sets the stage for every version of the X-Men. House of Powers doesn't happen without Claremont's X-Men setting the stage of this not being a superhero team, and these being like a more of a an expanding a race of people through it. There's a lot of superheroics, like Kevin said, for sure, but it's more than what they do in the Silver Age stuff. So yeah, it's tough.
Well,
I mean, there's lots of great stuff, but
it does so much of going from like the basic like anti rhetoric against mutants to space stuff, right? Like it has all of this stuff going, through it, and so there's just a lot to unpack there. So
I use Hush all the time for Batman, where I just say, if you want a best of, and that's an easy story, but complex, but because there's a lot of characters, but it hits every base in the Batman universe. It's
if Hush was done as a live action TV show right now, everybody would be talking about it once it dropped.
It's mostly a story within itself. Obviously, it draws from Red Hood and you have to know. I mean, it's a little bit of knowledge, but I would say very little comparatively. A lot of books, and it's modern art, and it's written in a modern fashion. There's not a lot of comics like Hush from other companies and even other characters within DC. I wish there was more books like that. There was this is like the greatest hits.
Hush
done
was a
in
great
a graphic
Rogues
novel.
Gallery introduction,
right? And that's what I mean, because it's you get a little bit of every element of the Batman universe in Hush. I don't really have a Superman one. I don't really have a Justice League one. I don't really have a Spider-Man one or a Batman one. Or an X-Men one. I mean,
for Superman was.
Yeah, but that's like flashback stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that encompasses a decent amount of who Superman is. It doesn't necessarily give you a rogues gallery, but I think it's that's one I always I fall back to. Or John's secret origin for him, I think, was really well done. Same thing with Secret Origin for Green Lantern from his run there.
Yeah, but I think to Ryan's point, Hush hit it all. It was here's the Joker, here's Poison Ivy, here's you feel
Harley Quinn, Crocodile. Here's his relationship with Superman. Here's
it does a very, very good job of just bringing you back into this is the world of Batman with his rogues gallery and everything else. You don't have
Long Halloween is the same way. Dark Victory is kind of the same way.
But I agree with Ryan. You don't have let's reintroduce you to all of Superman's rogues gallery in a story. You don't really have something that really highlights Lex and Metallo and Bizarro and that kind of stuff.
I mean, some could say All-Star Superman does.
Yeah. That's actually that's a pretty good suggestion for just fitting those feet.
Sorry.
No, it was a very good suggestion. Because it also is in a Superman story early in his career or anything like that. If anything, it flips that a bit.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good suggestion.
Well, I think that Flash hasn't really had something small like that. He's had John's run that kind of expanded out the Rogues Gallery and kind of did that, but that's a longer run. Spider-Man has had the Sinister Six stuff.
That's kind of where my brain was going when you said the Flash. I kind of feel you find any of the big rogue story, not the Captain Cold or whatnot, but the actual rogues as a team stories with the Flash, and I think you can kind of hit that.
Yeah.
And same with like Sinister Six with Spider-Man, you can hit that.
Just go read some comics. And if you can't find this stuff in print, just get Marvel Unlimited or something. It's probably on there.
And even in a weird way, there's a lot of good X-Men stories that play around with the Magneto's a good guy for this story, or so, like there tends to be a lot of ways to interconnect the characters in X-Men into a single story, especially any of the big events.
And if you want that Emma Frost stuff, go read the Hellfire Club. But not the Gala, apparently, because Hellfire Gala is...
I tried. All right. We are going to switch over and talk about...
hold on, I got to get the runtime. Hold on.
We're going to switch over and talk about Eternals. So...
All right, so we should be talking about this for, since there's only half of us, we should only be talking about this for about an hour and 20 minutes.
I don't have an hour and 20 minutes.
It's not going to happen.
I was just cutting the runtime in half.
Yeah. Spoilers for Eternals has been on Disney Plus now. We've all seen it. We all skipped out on the theatrical version. Boy.
I mean, I will say this. I'll just start off right here. I've never been so relieved that I skipped out on the theatrical version for any movie, because this was obviously one of those things where it's just like, it's a Marvel movie. Can I really avoid spoilers? Will I really feel like I missed something by not going to see it in the theater? And then I sat down and watched this movie and went like, I'm okay with waiting.
Yeah. I don't hate it. It's just very... It's a little dull. It does a weird thing where it info dumps a bunch of stuff on you, and then 45 minutes into the movie says, "Oh, by the way, everything you know is wrong." You can't. There's no attachment to these blank slate characters, and that's not just because of the characters from the comics.
They built the love story between what's her name and Icarus, like. I mean, that's what's supposed to hold you and keep you and make it very hard at 45 minutes in that everything you know is not the same.
There's some cool sequences, but that's not enough to make the movie, kind of work and hold together. I don't know why they decided this needed to be a solo thing. I feel like they probably should have just introduced these people in a couple other movies first and then had them get together as a team later. Guardians of the Galaxy took a bunch of characters and it was fun and funny and goofy and they were all a bunch of nobodies, but they have personalities, and within 10 seconds you love these characters. There's no point in this movie that you care about any of these characters.
We care about Jon Snow, okay? I mean, he's abandoned and then he's abandoned again. I mean, come on.
Well, They use him at the beginning too. They do the whole text crawl to introduce to tell you about a bunch of stuff, and then they do a bunch more scenes, and then Jon Snow comes in and he asks every question the audience needs answered because it doesn't make any sense, right? He just info dumps. They just info dump on him when he's like, "Wait, what the hell happened?" Yeah. I mean, there's horrible stuff like Icarus flying into the sun. This is just eye-rollingly stupid, and his turn makes no sense. I asked my friend Seth, who is legitimately an Eternals fan, who legitimately likes the comics, he's a huge Jack Kirby fan. He loves the comics. I was like, are they fucking robots in the comics? I've never heard of this. And he's like, no, I have no idea. They made up everything for the movie. It has nothing to do with the comic. I'm like, okay, yeah, I thought so. The Deviants, I know the Deviants in the comics are people. They're humanoid people. They're not monsters.
You have to make monsters in movies to make people watch them. And if you're having a Superman eye blasting guy fly around and shoot eye beams, then he has to be fighting monsters. He can't be fighting another dude because then you'll just have flashbacks of Superman 4.
Well, you get 90% of the movies in open voids, like where nothing is happening and they're not fighting anywhere, and it's just meaningless battles. It's such a weird movie. I don't know what they were thinking. I'm not against them trying something different, and I'm not against them trying something, maybe a little heavier, but like this wasn't it. Like, there's a ton of characters, you don't care about any of them. They immediately take out like potentially the couple interesting ones. Nothing's explained. Like, I mean, I guess it's like kind of like what's her face? She's remembering the past. But why is she attacking people? Like, there's no.
Well, and the thing, like, was it Mad Molly?
I don't think
whatever they called it, Mad Molly or whatever. Like, whatever she was going through, Angelina Jolie's character.
Oh, like her.
Like they call it Mad Molly or whatever.
It's not Mad Molly. I know you were trying to say, yeah, it's her. Whatever they. It's funny. I heard it right. I actually turned on the subtitles for some of this movie. And I was like, "Oh, that's not saying what I thought they were saying." Yeah, I forget what they call it. It's something, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But like, it's like
why?
Like they set it up, and you're like, every time, like, it's like she's gonna flip out now. She's gonna flip out. Like, there was no like, huh? Like, you knew exactly what was gonna happen. It was very predictable.
Like, why her? Why now? Why is she attacking them? Why is she attacking them? Like, I don't really get it. What causes it to trigger on and off? They're there for 7,000 years, and nothing changes except for the last couple of years worth of stuff. There's just other problems like, the Eternals or the what are they called, what are the guys called? Celestials. The Celestials, I guess, predicted accents and racial features that didn't exist 7,000 years ago and gave it to these people in 2000 BC and gave it to these robots. There's just a world building that doesn't exist. It feels totally disconnected from the Marvel universe. Well, they have to keep saying Thanos, but like
the best was they had Sprite. Why did you make a robot a kid? Yeah. Like, everybody else is fine, and you make one a kid.
Well, why would you make a robot deaf? Right? Look, I have no problem with casting these people in these roles. Why not make them people? Why are they robots? Why would a robot be deaf? Like to blend it in, maybe. I don't feel like any of that was given a reason or explained. It just feels, why do they need to be there? Like, the idea of them coming in, the Celestials kind of doing this stuff, it's cool enough. It was neat, but like, they could have been there for 7 years. They didn't have to be there for 7,000 years. Like, it doesn't change the story at all. Like, they're just doing nothing for 6,999 of them. Like, it just feels like they were trying to maybe be a little too close to the comic, and they missed the point of the story in between. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just makes no sense in this movie.
Well, I think one of the things that there's it's kind of a weird thing is that, like, something like the whole what is it? The whole thing with like the different ethnicities and races and stuff like that. That stuff I can understand, right? If it's the Celestials are monitoring the planet and they see these different peoples, and then they mirror their robots.
That's not what people were like 7,000 years ago.
Huh?
They didn't have those accents 7,000 years ago.
Like, the accents, no, but like the racial, the like the ethnicities and all the races and all that, I can understand.
I don't know. I mean,
I can understand that there's differences and stuff like that if they're observing, like if they make an attempt to say they were observing, and you see ancient, Asian cultures, ancient this, all this stuff like that. I understand,
but they don't look like the people they went down to protect. Yeah. So that's why I was like, where they draw like it's just they set up. If they look like aliens, that's fine. If they dropped them in today, that's fine. Dropping them in 7,000 years ago, you're like, oh, and this doesn't make any sense. Like, why would any of them be like this or doing these things? They're speaking English, whatever. I usually hand wave that away as, universal translator. Yeah. I'm not too worried about that.
And the thing is with the Eternal that was deaf, I can understand it being something if, like, in a battle with a deviant or something, they lose their hearing, like that's damaged, right? Like that I can understand. But saying that they created this robot that was deaf, right? I think that goes to the point. Like, not that I'm perfectly fine with it. I have no issues with it. Like, I enjoy seeing that in cinema. But for the sake of the story, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. That's my problem. If there was a bunch of, if the movie was great and I can kind of hand wave away one weird thing, I'm not too worried about it. But very little in this movie made any sense. And like I said, there's some cool scenes.
It's Mahad Wari. Mahad Wari is the condition, I think. Wari, right?
Yeah. But they're just going to leave this... They're just going to leave the Celestials half sticking out of the earth? Like, you going to clean that shit up? Like, what are you doing, dudes? Well, it's very strange. It's very strange. Charlie, jump in. You sound like you want to jump in.
I mean, at the end of the day, I completely agree with you in terms of you don't get connected to these characters, which is especially weird for me because there's a lot of series and stuff and movies I've loved that are all around the idea of immortal beings that have been around for a long time and that
Charlie
kind of
likes
stuff.
Highlander.
Yes, I do love Highlander, and I like Old Guard, and I like. There's a number of examples of.
His accent works in Highlander. Exactly. Though. Where are you from? Oh, what's he say? Like all many different places, or all from all over the place. Yeah, right. It works because it's fucking weird.
But it also helps that like these are people who have had all these life experiences that have shaped them the way they are. Like the way they set up the Eternals is kind of almost against any idea of these characters could evolve in any meaningful way. And that's frustrating to me as a viewer because what they've done is they've basically set out these characters that you can't empathize with at all, that you can't really root for in a way. So you don't care.
But Icarus loves her and she loved Icarus.
They didn't do a good job making you care about that relationship.
I know. That's why I was like, they tried to force it down your throat.
At the end of the day, I have respect for some of, like, this is kind of where I'm coming from on this. We all acknowledged prior to this movie coming out, Eternals is a really weird source material to try and make into a movie. And I don't think they necessarily, there was no one thing about this movie where I'm like, okay, it's because they deviated from the comics too much or that kind of stuff. There's certain things they could have handled better, but I also don't know that they could have made a better Eternals movie. Nor do I know that they could have made a that much worse Eternals movie. It's just the source material puts it in sort of a particular category for me that.
Yeah, it's kind of that movie for no one.
Yeah.
I don't expect we'll see these characters, really. I don't know what you do with them. Like, who cares?
Well, they're doing stuff with them. Everybody's going to go watch the movie because Harry Styles is in it. I should also say, Pip the Troll looked horrible, by the way. Like did they just like run out of budget? Like he looked like really bad. Hey, not just me, right? He looked very bad. He just traveled a long distance, okay? He was a little ragged.
Like that looked like a deleted scene that they didn't finish the effects on. Pip the Troll looked very, very bad. just hope that's not just me, right?
But he looked fine. It was compared to Harry Styles and his attractiveness. That was why Pip looked worse. No, they had a full budget for Pip. It was Harry Styles that you were enthralled by Harry Styles' beauty, so that made Pip look even worse.
No, I'll be the first one to say that, like, most of the effects in the movie looked fine to me up until like the last 20 minutes or something, where I was like, did they just run out of time to finish these effects? Because they
might have.
There was a bit there in the sort of
I was getting Justice League
final
flashback.
battle to the aftermath of the battle and that stuff, where I'm just like, these effects do not look as polished as they should.
I was getting Justice League flashbacks at that, like them battling Icarus there at the end. It was not good.
Eros is the one Marvel character they literally probably should never use. He is a very difficult character. I don't care. But I expect the greater world will be like, wait, what's the real deal with this character? I mean, he's a serial rapist. That is a tough character to portray in your comic books. I'm sure when they created the character, it was never meant, not intentionally meant to come off like this. But it is a character that does not age well, and so I feel like there's no reason to have this character in it. And like they just took every opportunity to mention Thanos in this movie. Just remember, it's a Marvel movie. We're a Marvel movie. Remember Thanos. You like Thanos. Yeah.
Well, I thought the Thanos thing was almost trying to avoid all the obvious questions people are going to ask about why were they not more involved, by basically being like, look, we were here, but we chose, like, I felt like they were trying to answer all the questions the audience would have about why on earth would they not, and they didn't do a very good job of giving you a satisfactory answer.
Well, the deviants didn't cause it, so we're not going to do anything. Well, it's like,
did they?
That's a shitty response.
I want to say they did they even explain why none of them were snapped away?
Well, they're robots.
Well, no, is it because of their celestial power?
No, because they're not real. They're not human. They're robots.
Oh, okay.
I mean, aren't they robots?
Who knows?
That's what this says.
That seemed to be heavily what they were implying, and that's why they don't age. That's why their minds could be wiped. That's why.
Yeah, they're not human. They're not humanoid. They're not living. They're robots. They're It's very strange. It's very weird. It's very weird. Yeah,
Did anybody like anything in the movie?
And like, you don't even get Black. Like, I like Black Knight. He's not in the movie. Even the Black Knight thing at the end was weird. Like, apparently that was Blade talking to him. Why? Blade. First of all, I made the mistake of clicking on a website that was going to explain the connection of Blade and Black Knight in the comic book series, and it took 9 paragraphs and 6 ads for it to tell me there is no connection between Blade and Black Knight in the comic books. They've never interacted.
Well, no, they interact all the time. They're right next to each other on the shelves.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, none of this shit makes any sense. Like, I like Black Knight. I would love for them to do like some medieval, Marvel flashback, the history of Black Knight, the history of the sword, his family. Like, that sounds cool. I'm totally down with that. And I'm fucking hella excited for Blade. I mean, they killed him in those first couple of movies, and Blade's cool. Vampires are awesome. Give me a bunch of fucking dark vampire shit. Like, love it.
Blade and Wesley Snipes cameoing in the new one. I'm down. Like,
only if he cameos like he does in What We Do in the Shadows, where they just they zoom him in. And he's yelling at people over the computer. That's how he's going to show up, and that's how he has to show up in the new
Blade movie.
Yeah.
Did anybody like anything? I mean, come on. You can pick costume design. You can pick, there was a set or one scene you liked. Charlie, you're the one that likes a lot of stuff. He can't. Charlie can't. He's gone.
Yeah, there's just nothing.
There's
like, it's not offensively bad. I'm not I hate this movie. There's just nothing to really say about it. It exists. It was like, if this was kind of like, I almost think if this was a standalone movie that wasn't a Marvel movie, I might almost like it better.
Yeah.
Because then I can at least be like, okay, it's about these robots to protect Earth. Sure.
Well,
it just feels it has nothing to do with the Marvel universe.
For me, it was one of those things where I think another thing I had a difficulty with is if they've taken care of the deviants, why don't they just rest? Why don't they just go into sleep mode? Right? Like, why don't they just, I don't know, like, and occasionally one is woken up to take care of something, and that's why you've had things over the years or whatever. But like, having them experience lives and stuff and not show any of that or really expand on that, I think that adds to the, well, why did they get dumped here in the first place? Right? Like, if they're there to monitor, basically to keep deviants from destroying the celestial embryo, what were deviants there for again?
Well, deviants were an early attempt to basically take out the predatory life on a planet. They just became the new alpha predator and therefore would kill the rest of life, which the Celestials needed to.
Yeah, it's the same as the Green Lantern and the Guardians, right? It's the same. It's the same story as the Guardians, the Manhunters, and the Green Lantern. They're like, we made something. Oh shit!
That was
we have to make something better.
Why wouldn't you get involved when Thanos snapped half of the food source where you're fucking Celestial?
Like, oh, well, right? Isn't that
like, hello? Threat level half the like.
Yeah. You think Celestials would be like, God damn it, Thanos. Yeah, I'm just not.
I think they.
I just don't have anything to say.
I think they bit off more than they could chew with this movie, and they were just trying to make, like, honestly, if you look at the movies that we got after, was it after Endgame? No, after Far From Home, right? Because Far From Home was the last one in the theaters. The Spider-Man Far From Home, that was the last one in the theaters before COVID hit. If you look at like Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, right? All three of those movies, you could pretty much skip in theaters. Like, the theater experience wouldn't have mattered for those movies, in my opinion. No Way Home, no, you need to be in the theaters for that, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel it would, like, for me, it was just kind of, okay, I watched something. Now apparently there's a dead celestial, like, sticking out of the earth that's somehow not affecting the rotational orbit of the earth at all. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's bad.
Yeah. Like, I don't hate it like Iron Man 3. Like, I actively dislike that movie. This, I just have nothing. I got nothing. I could kind of bitch about it, but I'm like, I don't have any, like, strong feelings. Like, I don't hate it. I'm just like, it's the most forgettable, just unrelated to the Marvel movies. If it feels like a totally different product.
Oh, here's a good question.
I don't believe any of these things.
Were the jokes horrible?
They're like, were there any? There were like, I don't think there were really that many. There's a couple, I guess, but like, I didn't know jokes were bad.
Nothing at your Ragnarok level.
It was just so in one ear and out the other. I just got nothing. I got no like strong opinion about it. Yeah, that's, yeah. C minus maybe. Like I don't actively dislike it. It just doesn't. It's nothing.
It's better than
It's
Iron
just
Man 3 for you, but you still don't
better
really
than
care about watching it.
it's better than Iron Man 3 because I actively dislike Iron Man 3. There's no Mandarin thing in this. There's no, there's no terrible kid actor. None of that's in this. It's just I guess this is a chapter. And I just can't imagine they'll follow up on any of this stuff.
No, they're going to follow up on it. It'll be all the stuff with Eros and Harry Styles and Puck.
Well, what do? Like, we gotta we got nothing else. We gotta go use Thanos again.
Well, no, they gotta rescue those other ones, the other trapped ones.
Oh yeah, all the other Eternals. Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll
see in a couple thousand years.
I have no doubt we will see another appearance by some of these characters and such. I don't think we'll see an Eternals 2. I don't think we'll see much past another appearance, per se. But I feel like because they did the Eternals Will Return and because they have stuff in the pipeline already, we'll get something, but the role will probably at least be redo.
Who knows?
Yeah, they can have them like, this event happened and now we got to clean up after it. But I don't want them to go back to Thanos. I don't want them to deal with this shit. Thanos is done. You did a masterful job, better than I could have ever imagined ever. Congratulations, Marvel and Disney. You pulled off literally the impossible. Now let's deal with Doom and Galactus and other characters. You don't need to go to Thanos ever again. Not soon. Not now. Not.
But in the
this decade.
In the comics, aren't we taking care of the mutants now?
Like,
was there an ad for we went for the deviants, but we needed to get the mutants?
Yeah. This new Marvel comic coming up. It's like Eternals versus mutants. It's like fucking
Eternals versus X-Men, or is it T-Men, or is it 10 men?
If they all die, the fans win. So, yeah.
Just imagine if this was your first Marvel movie.
Like I said, I almost think it would be better as its own thing.
Yeah.
It just feels like it doesn't make any sense in the Marvel universe. It doesn't work. It just feels so unnecessary.
So, one thing I would have actually suggested for this movie would be have it set in, have these characters set on an alternate Earth, and then, so you have, the first movie completely separated from everything else Marvel, and then fold them into the normal Marvel universe as part of, the Multiverse of Madness and stuff upcoming. That way you could avoid all the questions behind, why didn't you do more during Thanos? Why didn't you do more if those events didn't take place on this Earth? You avoid a lot of those complications.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. All right. Maybe we'll have more to say about Eternals in the future, but there's 19,000 other comic book movies coming out this year alone, so I'm sure we'll just say much more about them instead. We are going to wrap up now. I should actually open up my thing. Nope, that's my Back to the Future 3 rips. Let's go back here. Where are we? Podcast. There we go. We are going to wrap up now. Thank you all very much for joining us on this wonderful episode of the Comic Conspiracy Podcast. Thank you to our high-tier backers at patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. You can kick us a couple bucks for recording this wonderful, wonderful podcast almost every single week. Joe Duff, Kelsey May, Craig Anderson at clearpathcoaches.com, Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum Podcast, and Talon Bray. Thank you all very much for your continued support, as well as everyone else that backs us at patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy. You can go over to comicconspiracypodcast.com, Apple Podcast. We are technically still on Spotify. Probably not going to be the case next week. Spotify can fuck off. So please subscribe some other way. More than likely removing this podcast from Spotify. You go to patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy, of course. Kick us a couple bucks over there. Comics with an S, comicsconspiracy.biz is where you can buy all our books. If you want to buy a copy of Mouse, next week it should be ready. Maybe we're going to sell it immediately. Hard to tell. ConspiratorBrock.com, that's Brock's blog, video post, unboxing videos. He's been a little, since his move, it's been a little bit off his normal schedule, but coming back soon. Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension podcast, that's Charlie's Doctor Who podcast. We're no new Who, so Charlie's schedule is a little bit, what do you, once a month now?
Yeah, once a
just
month.
On break? Okay.
Once a month until New Who is back.
Yeah. Kevin has Between the Panels, which is an article series at fanbasepress.com, weekly interviews that he does with a bunch of cool comic creators, so definitely check that out. And my wife Leanne is at leannehill.com, and you can see all her art there, as well as her Etsy store, which is etsy.com/shop/Leanne. That's Leann. A lot of people misspell her name. Leanne Hill Art. If you're on Twitter, you can follow all of us. Ryan Higgins, Ryan is myself. Brock is Brock Sager. Toby is Toby XI. Get the guy back on here, man. That dude is... I haven't seen Toby in weeks and weeks and weeks. He's crazy busy. Charlie's Insanity and Chaos. Kevin is that Kevin Sharp in the stores. Comics Con store. And check out Geekbox. Record that every other week. A lot of game news recently. Activision Blizzard, now Bungie. Everyone's getting bought up. There's like three video game companies left. And our friends over at Manga Nations. Make sure you check them out. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week.